by other modes. But now we're transitioning into the complete items section.
Item balance. So let's talk here.
That's what I've been wanting to look at.
Major goldie items this year. So I know we're going to go through penetration stuff eventually on mages. That's been talked about a little bit.
Right.
But what was the overall goal here from your point of view?
Yeah, so we wanted to look at items that have just traditionally been underwhelming, and at the start of the season, find ways that we can kind of bring them out, get people excited about purchasing these items that have kind of like fallen to the wayside, or look at places where we've adjusted different items and different strengths of characters and different strengths of roles, and see what we can do to either help or in some cases nerf whatever needs to happen for these items.
Our goal is always to create the most number of viable items. We want the most number of combinations of builds. We want the most amount of choices. We want everything to feel like it can work in some situation or
There's
some
a reason
god.
for every item to
Yes.
exist.
Right, exactly.
There's a situation to pick it up in that could be useful. We're going to start off then with neutral items. Mystical Mail, first of all, going to have a decreased cost, but also have decreased health on this item, so it may be a little bit more viable for you to pick
Now,
up.
I am very excited for this one. Some people might see it as a nerf, but
It's still gonna have the damage to it.
I like to rush this item and joust and things like that, and you can do
I
some
actually
crazy
like
damage,
running
so this
Mystical
change
Mail.
is really exciting.
But you won't be as tanky for it.
That's true, and that's honestly okay. One of
That's
the problems
okay,
with this
given
item
if
is
you
it's
have
just
like a
too
whole bunch of
stat
like
dense
other
across the board.
things.
That's what has historically been a problem. But it is kind of a flex item, and it has these interesting applications. So being able to rush it, that fits with our design consistency with the way we approach other items of similar role.
It's one of the things that we saw in solo lane a lot
So-
because it gave a lot of, not so sustainable extra damage in that lane to help clear in the early.
Me and the Threes Bros running double Guardian rushing this is going to be a thing. We're going to continue to do that.
Well, that's
It's
Mystical
been
Mail.
successful for us in the past.
We'll move on. Witchblade is going to get a bit of a change as well. It's going to get some more health added to it here. It's going to go by 50 health. That should help out a little bit on making it a bit more viable. I think it was in a pretty good spot anyway in terms of what it brought.
Yeah, it's still a little bit of love to the item.
Need a bit more love.
I thought it
This
was
is a
good at where it
that
was at.
supports might want to itemize into to help their team through the aura.
I
It
have
didn't
done
have the
occasion.
stats, so
Yeah.
giving it just a little health. It's still a hybrid item, but now supports hopefully feel a little bit better about picking it up when they really feel like it's a good counter item.
Shoguns as well. He's also going to get an update, increase the attack speed aura. Interesting. It's going to go by 5%, so it makes it a bit more attractive to if you're using a few more in-hand characters in your game, maybe Carly, Sol, and any other hunter in the game. Add that together, and they'll be quite happy.
So there's a bit of a theme developing here. If
Yeah.
you might have
Yo,
noticed
that is
all of
sick.
the items we're looking to for the kind of support class, and of course some of these could fit towards warriors as well, are aura items. We're buffing a lot of them in order to make sure that this class feels like they've got something interesting, impactful, and some new choices at the start of the season.
So that's Shoguns. We've also got Sovereignty on this list. That's going to get a bit more HP 5 added to it. And on top of that, we're also going to have Heartward Amulet as the two auras, as Adrian was just mentioning. We're going to see Heartward Amulet have a bit increased MP5. Is that personal MP5 or is that team MP5?
That's team MP.
That's on the aura.
Okay.
That's on the aura.
Just
so
wanted to make sure.
there you go.
Yo,
your
that's
assault
pretty
main again.
sick.
Mr. Assault Main. But also, I
You
really
don't
feel
need an
like
assault anymore. Don't go getting Heartwards if you're playing that. It's on other people responsible. There's Blackthorn hammers. There's Chronos pendants. They can do it themselves.
here's the top. We should have a show just about the top tier assault gameplay.
Listen,
honestly,
we can
but-
have a ranked assault discussion at some point. It's going to happen.
Dude,
Ranked,
it
but-
needs to happen. We always
Right.
talk about it, me and my
Ranked
friends.
assault, no trades, no rerolls. You are locked on the god, and certain healers are in
with our
Please.
long show, this is what we choose to
This
talk
was
about.
the most important.
I would
All right, so
love
this,
that.
though, this regen effect, though, we really believe is underrated in Conquest too. A lot of people, when they think of Heartward Sov, they only think about the protections. But in this mode where you're out and lane longer, those regens and being able to share those with your team, that's underrated. That is an interesting effect.
I
And
do wanna
we
mention
think
as well,
this is going to.
He's right. Like I don't really think about that MP5 and HP5 shit.
MP5
I would just
and
think about the
HP5 are not.
protections.
These are actual
HP5 is not
MP5 and
affected by
HP5
anything.
Only the healing
stats.
effects.
Only
That's what I
heal
like to
over
pretend.
time and stuff.
Because that's
so.
just where it's like,
No, you cannot.
you just stack HP5 and you'd be good to go.
Correct.
Yeah, in a way.
HP5 is a very potent stat that is often considered underwhelming.
And
for
we will
most
be
players, but it's very
going
strong.
over this concept again with a new HP5 item later for an interesting reason.
So that's it for the neutral items. We're now going to move on to the magical items, and this is where we're going to get a bit tricky because we talked a little bit about what's been going on with the penetration. You guys can all read up on that on the website as well, all to do with all the changes that's going to be happening to the magical penetration.
Right.
In terms of the percentage versus percent versus flat
Well,
pen.
so we're going to start with new items.
Right.
We're going to go through some of the new magical items, and then we're going to talk more about penetration when we get to Obsidian Shard.
One of them just kind of mixes the.
But some of the
Actually, Order
new,
s-
but
actually,
some
Order
of the
starts
new
with
items.
Dynasty Plate Helm and then goes to the new item, but it's part of that
But
tree.
yeah, it's part of the tree. But some of the new items, their design role was created out of the penetration change, and we can talk about that.
And
as
you'll
we go.
see exactly what we talk about there when we get to that. So, first of all, Disney Plate Helm will now have a Tier 3 counterpart, the Tyrannical Plate Helm.
That's the new item.
We have updated the cost and stats of this item to better match this new item. Tyrannical Plate Helm, let's go through it. It's going to be, Tyrannical Plate Helm has high magical power and an interesting new passive. The passive is, if there are allied minions around you, they gain 20% max HP and 20% attack speed. Whenever an allied minion dies around you, you gain 5 power per stack, up to 6 stacks.
What?
20% max HP
love your
and
reaction
20%
this year.
attack.
So to note, this is
the
no
minions
longer a
around you.
penetration tree at all. So
Right.
the Dynasty Plate Helm, no penetration. It's going to have similar stats as we see on Tyrannical, which is power, magical power, physical protection, and health. But then let's talk about the item design more as a whole, Ponicle Z.
Wild.
Yo, that passive
a
is
mini buff item.
interesting.
Yes, this has been discussed a lot. Is an item that helps you push or helps you like threaten to push down a phoenix or help you break a siege. A Tyrannical Plate Helm is essentially that. You can pick it up on maybe if you're the more kind of frontline mage, a bruiser mage, or if you're a support and you want to pick this up for the defensive nature of it. You can basically walk next to your minions, lead them to the charge, and when they fail you and die to the tower or die to the enemy team and they've let you down, you take matters in your own hand and you start punching the tower yourself.
So even when there's no minions, you get something around as long as you've been near minions recently.
That's true, you get a bit of a buff after the minions
It
attack.
has
Yeah.
pretty
Radical
good
Two
Plate
questions.
Emperor's armor too.
Oni minions, do they get affected by this?
All lane minions around you should be affected by this.
All minions. Fire minions.
Clay
Fire
minions.
No. Only actual
Clay-
minions.
No.
Those are clay
Only-
soldiers. They're not minions. They're
Yep,
pets.
there you go.
I'm just making
Don't
sure.
try it. Don't try
Nice
it.
try.
There'll be people at home just like me now going, so the clay soldier minions. I can buff them even
God pets do not fall into the category of minions.
Okay, I just
Only
wanna-
archer, swordsman, brute,
Just want to make sure.
and
So this
possibly
is
with their fire or Oni buffs
like I
count.
said, this can
And
be
could
used
affect palm
defensively,
modes.
offensively in both regards of
Yep.
trying to push down a little bit quicker.
Fans of the old school, what was it, the promote?
Oh yeah,
Active?
yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Of closed
This is
beta?
kind
Or
of
like, was
getting a
that
little bit
even
of that
closed beta?
feeling.
Was that pre-beta?
At like PAX 2013, we had one match where we all went that, and we just hard pushed a wave,
Yeah.
got stopped at the Phoenix,
So
and then had to win
this
the
is
old-fashioned
essentially
way.
the balanced version of that.
Okay. We'll see how balanced it is as the season progresses.
should
but
never call it
PTS is first.
Right
yes.
now.
you
But this
should
is
look-
the exciting yet counterplay possible version of that.
Yeah.
So Tyrannical Plate Helm, see that in game, test it out, tell us what you think. Next up, Stone of Foul. This has had a few changes through the years and a couple of different looks. It's going to have a
People
new
have been asking for
passive
this
here to try and make it more viable, I guess, for people to want to pick up. The new passive is you gain 20% of your magical protections of the nearby allied god with the highest magical protections within 70 feet.
Protection sharing.
So a teammate, so you can just get, oh man,
Just be
I'm,
near-
I'm a stat bot again as a support player. aren't I?
Somewhat. I mean, you
That's
don't
what
even
we
need
are.
to with your natural
Hey, we have very
protections and your
aggressive
items.
auras that are good for us
That's true,
support
that's true.
players
Yeah,
too right
Shogun's
now.
So they get
actually go
20% of the
well.
magical protections
Yeah.
of the nearby allied god.
So now, if I have to be worrying about this magical assassin or these other high-powered magical characters, I just need to be near my support, and that'll already give me a benefit. Just helping you with your positioning, and that way you really don't have to do much else than that.
First time a support, somebody might want a support player near him now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, it's like,
Oh,
go
come on.
away,
People
go
love
away.
their support.
Come here, come here.
Peel
Well,
for me.
this item still fits its original goal of being a magical power item that helps you itemize against other mages. But we didn't want mages just buying a bunch of protections, and we didn't really want to be putting just too much magical protections on this power item, right? Because then that's an overpowered hybrid. So this sharing kind of concept, it's a very new mechanic. So we're really interested to see how this works out. It looks like it's going to solve a lot of those design questions in those edge cases. Will it be as applicable as we think? Will it be better than Old Stone of Fall? We hope so. We're looking forward to seeing how people feel.
That's very
So
interesting,
I'm gonna
honestly.
Try out the Stone of Fall. Next up is to talk about removing the Shaman's Ring. It's not going to be available anymore. A lot of debate about that.
A lot
Really?
of people have expressed to us that they just really enjoy the passive, even though it was statistically worse than most other power
I
items.
love Shaman's
More
Ring.
like a
Flare
nerf
Boots going to
trap.
battle for us out there, trying to prove to people that it really wasn't very good damage.
Was that
Fear
the
of
argument for
Desolation
it? It was
essentially
kind of a
always
trap.
beat it.
But people felt good about how it worked, so we're going to keep in mind that tech, that debuff tech that puts your god icon on other people. We're going to keep that in mind, and we're going to see if we can apply that somewhere else in the game.
Okay.
But for right now, for our goals for this season and these item changes, this item was not doing us any favors because of its confusion. It's giving us power.
I'm
We were
sad.
balancing power and penetration across the board. So this item is gone, and it's making room for a new ring.
Look at these segues. They're perfect. Thanks,
A
AJ.
very
On to
exciting
Okay.
new ring.
the
Yeah,
new
this is,
ring.
pretty spicy.
Ring of Hecate. Hecate?
That is this. It is
Hecate?
a reference to the goddess of witchcraft.
Mage AD carries have been asking for this item for a long time. We'll find out, shall we?
Oh,
Passive.
shit.
Hitting enemy gods with basic attacks gives you one stack of 2% lifesteal. Stacks up to 5 times and stacks last 5 seconds. So it's a lifesteal item for
It's the Mage
mages
ADC lifesteal item.
based on
Power,
ADCs.
attack speed, lifesteal.
Yo,
All
that
together
ring
in
is
one item
lit.
for the first time.
Yo,
ever.
imagine Soul with that.
So it's only hitting enemy gods for attacks as well.
Well, for
magical
magical powers. So yeah,
It just says enemy gods though. It's not going to work on minions.
Yes, correct.
Enemy gods.
Okay, so this is a fighting, dueling sort
so
of.
it gives you a good amount of lifesteal all the time. But then
Right.
for the ramping passive lifesteal, that's only going to apply in the boxing scenario when you're actually hitting an enemy god.
Gotcha. And that'll be what we see from that passive. So we'll see how this one works.
Well, this is just really cool because this is a stat. These are all the stats that Mage ADCs need, and normally they kind of have to itemize into a full
Yeah.
other set
You
of
might
a
not
couple
need to
tier
get
3
that.
items.
Right.
I feel like it's necessary.
Gotcha.
So what we're hoping this does is open up the Mage ADC build paths to include some more interesting.
Maybe you've got healers in your team, you don't necessarily need as much sustain, but you might want a little bit in case of tricky situations.
And
Okay.
because of this, the ring tree is now actually the attack speed tree.
Yeah.
And the tier 2 gets attack speed.
Correct.
Which we'll talk
The
about
tier
later.
2 is in
But-
the patch notes. I thought I put it next to this one.
Bonus.
You can now get all the 4 rings and
It
not
got,
feel bad
it
about
got
it
moved
as well.
down, but yeah, the tier 2 ring will feel much better to buy now too.
Well,
Dude,
we move on.
Soul's gonna build all
Another new
rings.
item coming out here. This one is intriguing.
This is
I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. I just know it's going to be in the game.
it's pretty good for our testing, but you never know.
Charon's coin? Charon's coin?
Charon.
Charon?
yeah.
Charon.
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 Charon. Charon.
Car on.
Charon.
I thought it was
Charon's-
care.
I thought it
Charon's
was
coin.
car.
All right, it's Charon.
Someone knows.
You'll correct us regardless.
Not to be
Charon.
confused
Okay.
with Chiron.
So this is a new ring.
Charon is the boatman of the dead, the ferryman.
Yeah.
Rumen of the Styx.
He requires a coin for passage to the underworld.
And you too can now own the coin in Smite.
Call the number at the bottom of your screen now.
Charon's coin is going to be a 20%
Stupid.
magical penetration item. Just to be clear, they're focused on long-term investment and extended engagements rather than roar up for a burst. The passive reads, on God kill or assist, a coin is flipped. If heads, you gain a stack of 7 HP 5. If tails, you gain a stack of 2 movement speed. Each effect can stack up to 4 times, and 8 stacks, this item will evolve. It evolves too? What?
Yeah, it's net-
This item evolves. You also gain 1 gold every time the coin is
Yeah,
flipped.
'cause
All right.
Because you flip the coin.
I
Purely
like the
for
coin
thematic
flip.
reasons. You summon a coin, you get one coin.
Evolution. So going into the evolution. So first of all, just to be real clear, you get HP 5. If you get one side of the coin, the other side of the coin will give you movement speed. And on evolution, on God, kill, or assist, a coin is flipped. And if heads, you'll gain 150 health over 6 seconds. Or if tails, you'll gain 5% movement speed for 6 seconds. You also gain 1 gold every time the coin is flipped again on the evolution.
That's the
version
most
as well.
important part, too.
So if you get 2,700 kills, you've paid the item.
Yeah.
Wow.
That might
You
be
can
a
do
bit
that.
hard.
Maybe with Thanatos. All right, no, clumsy. Walk us through this item, its overall intention, and a little bit more. Give us
Yeah,
a
I
bit of
wanted
the,
to,
the user experience so we can understand it more
We talked
clearly.
about it a little bit earlier as well, but we've kind of reached into the section where with the new items, we're also at the penetration changes. So this is going to be one of the first of the 2 items that's going to have the 20% magical penetration. And that's going to be pretty important. Charon's coin is something, we're going to talk about Obsidian Shard right afterwards, but Charon's coin kind of, it's a little bit more niche, it's a little bit more interesting. It's this permanent stacking item. You kind of want to get it kind of in the middle of the game where you know you're going to be versing some tanky characters, but you also want to start the stacking effect pretty early.
Right.
And we also wanted to play a little bit with this RNG mechanic that doesn't feel too unfair. They're both kind of buffs, they're permanent stacks, right, until you evolve it, that don't feel too, unfortunate if you only get one. If you get tails, you don't feel bad for getting that you didn't get heads, and same thing, vice versa. So I think it's going to be one of the more interesting niche items here.
So just on the numbers real quick, the passive of that would be 10% you'll get movement speed, and then the stacks will evolve it, and you get 5% on top.
So you'll get 8%, once it evolves, it'll have 8% permanent
Gotcha, and then you
movement
can get
speed,
5 still.
28% HP 5, and then when this next proc happens, you'll get those on top of it.
Okay.
And another interesting note about this, you cannot flip past the maximum, right?
Right,
So if you happen to go tails 4 times,
You'll
then start to
4
you'll get heads 4
You
times
will,
next.
you will not be able to
But-
fail
So
this
rigged
item.
coin is what you're telling
Yeah.
me.
It-
eventually,
it is.
right?
But the goal is you can
Life
only
and
hit the
death is
max cap, yeah. So
Okay. And
you
it's also
won't-
got 20% magical pen on this, by the way.
So
Yeah,
after
so that's
8
the
kills,
main
this will
important
always
ones.
evolve regardless of the order.
Right.
So it could be understood that you might get
2 and 2.
unlucky and you never evolve it, but that's
But
not
yeah,
the case.
drawing focus on that, this is one of the 2 20% magical pen items.
There's only
That's
2 in
gonna
the
be-
game.
There's only 2.
And there
There's
will
several
be a
10%
40% cap. So
Exactly.
the new, as we go into Obsidian Shard, in the new world of magical penetration, there'll be a lot more items that have percent pen on them, and it'll be up to the player to decide
So
how they
there's-
want to mix and match those to get the other stats, the item passives, and the penetration that they need. Do
The
they need the
slaughter
full
pen
40%?
just
Not
saying.
every match. Okay,
Yo,
that's
that
fine.
ring
Use
is
the traditional high power items. Or
pretty
if
disgusting.
you really need the 40%, there will be lots of different combinations of 10s and 20s you could do to reach that cap.
Okay. Well, there's the first 20% one. The second 20% one is Obsidian Shard, which we're going to move on to now.
they fuck
Now,
with
obviously,
that?
Obsidian Shard's still in the game. It's going to have a bit of an increased cost to this as well. But we have added 20% magical penetration to this item. Your first ability cast gains 10% magical penetration. This can only occur once every 10 seconds. Which is your first ability cast gains? What does that mean?
So after the timer, the cooldown timer is
Right.
up,
There is
the
a
next
cooldown timer.
ability you hit a god with is going to get the
It's
trigger.
an internal cooldown of 10 seconds.
Gotcha. I just didn't see the internal cooldown in there.
Yeah.
Oh, it does say that now. I didn't see it before. I was like, wait.
So the main takeaway is that Obsidian Shard has been a pretty problematic item for many different reasons.
I
We talked
love
about that,
that.
so I'm not going to reiterate all of that.
Sure.
But essentially, it's a base 15% magical penetration, going all the way up to 45%, which is even more than the new cap we've put into Season 7.
Right.
So now it's going to have this 20% with an extra 10% on this conditional passive that actually goes over. It's not going to be obeying that same 40% cap. So Karin's coin is the 20%, which takes a little bit more investment.
Yeah.
Obsidian Shard is kind of the upfront. It costs less gold as well, where you just want to get it in more reaction if you're going to be versing some tanky characters that have started. picking
Yo,
up
that
magic.
is
Yeah,
sick.
the passive really does help you. Like if you're just trying to threaten maybe.
Yo,
a
like
warrior who's
all
got,
these
a
like
nice
pen
zombie,
items that,
this item is
like
a-
all
is a
these
one-off, it'll
items
help
that
you through,
they're
but it won't negate that purchase that warrior made.
bringing
which is
in.
a large part of why we did all these.
It's pretty
magical
fucking
items or
sick.
penetration changes.
It's gonna be a good
It's really
time to
hard
be a
TLDR
fucking mage.
Changes, which is why you
Yeah,
should
some
really
mages
read the
can
blog
finally
posts
kill
and really
subs and
read
I
stuff.
mean,
deep into
the
this.
main points we were
Yes.
trying to convey is that Obsidian Shard and Spear of the Magus were both problem items, but for different reasons.
Yes.
Spear of the Magus made certain gods more viable than others and caused a lot of problems in that regard with flat penetration. And Obsidian Shard was just kind of like one item wonder for anti-tank. And we were trying to fix both of those problems simultaneously, which has caused us to kind of refactor penetration and magical power across the board, with the #1 goal of, as Smite as a game, the magical damage being dished out should be easier to comprehend where it's coming from, and it should ramp up at a more reasonable rate, as opposed to just, oh, I was fighting this mage and completely crushing them, and now all of a sudden they're two-shotting me and I don't understand why.
That was a
Okay.
good TLDR.
Right, we're going to move along because we're not
Alrighty,
halfway
Rainer.
through the show yet, and we're deep. We're deep into
All right,
it.
move
Star
it.
focus. Added 10% magical
That's just
penetration.
at tier 2.
Remove the passive. The tier 2
Parity
Obsidian
with
Shard.
Obsidian
Yep.
We're going to give it 10%. So it's
It's
still
a
pretty
nerf.
viable, though. I
Yeah.
think 10% for.
But it's,
the
it
tier 2
used to
version.
be more.
It did. But it still could be useful. Spear of the Magus. This is a bit of a change here as well.
Ooh, Spear of the
was
Magus.
the second main item for mages in terms of penetration.
Increased
Obviously,
magical
we're going to be
power versus
increasing the
the
magical
5%
power of this
power.
item, but also subsequent hits of the same ability deal 6% increased damage, stacking up to 6 times.
So just like we talked about Obsidian Shard, which is a massive problem for mages' damage against tanky characters,
Yeah.
Spear of the Magus was the opposite, where it would hit squishy characters, hit all the ones with the small amount of protections really, really hard. And depending on what mage you were, what character you were, it was going to give you different benefits. So we've saw a lot of trends in the last few years where Spear of Magus has really empowered a lot of these mages, these dot characters, these persistent ability firing characters to really high degrees. I mean, each god starts the game with 30 magical protections,
Yes.
scaling at 0.9. And Spirit of Magus has the potential to reduce 50 flat protections, basically demolishing it all the way to 0, where you're dealing true damage with maybe just one passive.
And in a
of your
debuff
option.
form, so other gods would also be hitting that
and
god.
then your subsequent fire of your other abilities will continue to deal damage. This was a pretty big problem just for the reasons that AJ talked about, where if you're the opponent, you may not know why you're suddenly taking true damage from this other character and from other mages as well.
But now it's a true dot damage, and it only affects the dot or the ability itself, the deployable, the stim that has multiple fires.
Right.
Just that ability itself is going to ramp up in damage. So that's going to be cool on gods like Kukulkan, Anubis. It even works on things like Freya,
Yeah.
Isis, Raijin,
Just be
Malti.
clear on this, does it have does it reset the stacks or does it keep applying as you reuse the ability on the same person?
Well, if you're
there
using a
cooldown?
second ability fire, that's another.
No, no, I
Each
mean,
ability
if
has
I
its
use my
own
one
independent
and then come
stacks.
back later, use my one later, does the
No, it's
stacks
complete. Yeah, it's going to
Yeah,
reset.
resets.
It
Each
resets.
instant of firing the ability starts
Just
over.
wanted to
So
make sure.
this should, in most cases, do less damage than buying Spear of the Magus did, but not in all cases, obviously.
damage over the time
Penetration is a
gods-
complicated calculation, but
The Olympians have helped a lot with the feedback. Flavored again helping with spreadsheet this damage. It is definitely going to be doing a lot less damage than Spirit of Magus' previous iteration for the flat pen, but it should be more consistent. And like we said, it should be more obvious to tell where it's coming
And you
from.
can build it into more interesting builds with other types of penetration in this new world, and who knows?
Which is actually why we gave it a little bit of power extra.
Damn, all
let's
these
go
new
through a
mage
couple more
items
now.
are
The
fucking
main spear and
insane.
penetration items have changed. Shoes of the Magi, they're going to be losing their 10 magical penetration, but they're going to be coming down in cost and increasing magical power. Not only the Shoes of the Magi, though, the Shoes of Focus, they're going to see a cost increase ever so slightly as well to kind of match to make sure these boots are both viable, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
I'm doing your job for you because we've been here
Well,
a
there
while.
was a lot of concern that losing penetration would really just make Shoes of the Magi just unusable.
Yeah.
We think when people actually try all these items together, they will see that there's a lot of benefits in going this high power, and
low
not
pressure.
every god really needs all the cooldown and mana.
One main note
but-
on that as well is that lane minions have very, very low magical protections, so that penetration was actually not helping you with the clear that much. This
Okay.
extra power is going to show noticeable increases of damage on
Yeah,
lane
crushing
minions.
the wave.
You can
Quicker
get some
wave clever.
really good pressure plays off of rushing this, and if you go cooldown, you might be at a loss because of that.
So that Shoes of Focus.
Yeah, welcome back,
Pythagoras
Rainer.
piece is next on the list. They've added 10% magical penetration to this, but at the cost of 10% cooldown reduction. So no 10% cooldown reduction on this. It's got magical penetration instead. Typhon's Fang is going to have added magical penetration to that item, but it's going to have a decreased magical power effect on that to sway the difference. Soul Reaver, we're going to see an increased cost of Soul Reaver, but there's a reason why. It's because it's going to have 10% magical penetration added to it and a slight decrease in magical power here, because it's still going to have the effect anyway of the percent health.
Yep.
Yo.
Makes sense?
So let's go through this whole section, and then we'll talk a little bit
Yeah,
about
we will.
why we made these
Staff
adjustments.
of Murden, next up, added 10% magical penetration, but decreased the magical power of this item to compensate. Sorcerer's Staff, the Warlock Staff, which we may have to go a little bit more in detail about for a second. We're going to be reducing the Sorcerer's Staff base health amount. However, Warlock Staff is going through some changes here. What's the goal with Warlock Staff, boys?
It's been an item that has traditionally been the like dictated how tanky mages are and really dictated a meta, or has just not been built in favor of other high-powered choices. And that's just because of the combination, similar to almost Mystical Mail, where like the combination of the defensive stats it provided, along with like the power that it had, made it this item that like once it was like seen as
All
viable,
these
it was,
mage
like,
items are just
path.
making me
And we're
so
pivoting it
happy.
Much more towards power-oriented. It will have a little bit of defensive stats to help you, so you'll be tankier for building it, but it's much more focused on the power this time. So when you build it, you're not an unstoppable like, beast walking forward into the enemy team.
Okay, so it's going to have added, Warlock Staff is going to have 10% magical penetration, a reduced base health, but we've adjusted the passive so you get different stack amounts. It's going to be 1 health and 1 magical power per stack, and that caps out at 75 stacks for 75 health and 75 magical power. So the evolved Warlock Staff, due to all the changes going on with Warlock Staff, the final evolved Warlock Staff will now read 140 magical power, 225 health, 200 mana, and 10% magical penetration.
Right. So as we changed magical percent penetration, we tried to reallocate it to a bunch of different items that have specifically different roles. Right. The goal is that we want mages to be able to itemize into their penetration and have an interesting selection of items to combine to reach the amount of penetration they feel like they need for that match. So Obsidian Shard and Charon's Coin are the high penetration items. They have 20%. They're the only two. All the rest of these have 10. Pythagorum's piece is the support team-oriented item. So this is to help your team. It's got a very powerful aura, but also gives you penetration. Whereas Warlock Staff is the selfish tanky item that also gives penetration. Typhon's Fang is the lifesteal penetration item. And Soul Reaver was the one that was already kind of used for tank shredding
Yeah.
because of the bonus damage, so it felt silly to not give it its penetration. So that is another, like, that's your kind of
doubling
another
its identity.
high
Flip it
penetration.
around, have some core ones that may give 20% that are
Soul
viable
Reaver,
for collection
bro.
builds, but then some that are specific to different options.
Right,
Okay.
and then Staff of Mirrodin is your crazy passive category. Is that a category?
As
Do people
category.
seek out crazy
Prerequisite,
passive items? Or you could just
so-
say it's a traditional power option.
Well, I think
So
I
just
don't think
power
I was
item.
around for that.
So, a lot of these changes make these items stronger. The only one that we've seen maybe some debate on is Pythagorum's piece. Obviously, there was a lot of community reaction to the blog post there. Pythagoras' piece has been OP for like a whole year, so catch up, everyone, please. We are very okay with.
Fight them a little while ago.
Yeah, a lot of people were saying do not change this item, but the pros have been asking us to change this item pretty much nonstop
They just
for
wanted to like
months.
heavy nerf it as well.
This is this is an
not
item that
quite
is
a nerf,
like
but it is.
rush on Chronos, and it's great.
Yeah.
So this item needed a little shift. We like this change. We think this is going to be good and healthy for the game.
Well, we've done all the penetration stuff.
Anything
now.
else to say about those
Oh
items?
shit, was it actually?
So really,
They
what this will
changed
let you
it to
do,
two
like, is
items.
make your mage build really flexible. If you need to get
Oh,
into
yeah,
lifesteal and penetration, all of a sudden you realize.
I know,
okay,
I
there's an
heard
option.
that word
You know,
once,
if I need
and
to get
it
into-
clicked
I
my
need to select some
friend.
health and
He's like,
some
yo, go
penetration,
for
there's an
Talis. And I'm
option
like,
for
what the
that.
fuck's
So
that? He's
this
like,
way
oh,
will
hit some
allow you to
katana.
do a lot of different decision making instead of just going.
Okay.
Nope, Obsidian
It all
Shard,
makes
bye."
sense.
I
don't
don't
feel
Okay.
this one item. And then my
Fuck,
friend
I ran out of
will
water.
move on. Well, moving on now as well from penetration, we're going to talk a little bit about magical power real quick. A lot of items going to be have been given additional magical power. I think this is some of the compensation for the penetration that we've
Right.
seen changes there, right?
Right.
Losing some flat pen, especially on the shoes, as well as in Spear of Magus,
Yeah.
we wanted to add a little bit of power on a couple of key items.
To
that's
help
what
out
we
a
did
little bit more. So here we go with the list of these. This is the increased magical power. Increased magical power for the following items: Spear of Desolation, Rod of Tahuti, Soul Gem, Polynomicon, and Telkine's Ring. And then we'll move on to Chronos Pendant. It's going to have a decreased cost, but it's also going to have
Wait,
increased magical
yo,
power to
wait,
make that a little bit more attractive.
Wait, you blew through those way too
Compensation for the
fast.
penetration that we've
Right.
seen changes there, right?
Right.
Losing some flat pen, especially on the shoes, as well as in Spear of Magus,
Yeah.
we wanted to add a little bit of power on a couple of key items.
To
that's
help
what we
out
did
a little
here.
bit more. So here we go with the list of these. This is the increased magical power. Increased magical power for the following items: Spear of Desolation, Rod of Tahuti, Soul Gem,
Spirit Desolation. Increase magical power from 100 to 110.
Polynomicon, and Telkine's Ring. And then we'll move on to Chronos
Rada Tahiti increases magical power from 150 to 160.
Pendant. It's going to have a decreased cost, but it's also going to have increased magical power
Soul Gem increases magical power from 60 from 65 to 80.
to make that a little bit more attractive.
Ooh.
Restored Artifact. We're going to be decreasing the price of Restored Artifacts.
75 to
The price of the
85.
tier 3 items will remain the same in the tree, but we're also going to be increasing the magical power. So Restored Artifacts can be a little bit more potent now.
And
Oh,
a
yeah.
potentially interesting start if you want to rush that
Yeah,
instead of book.
1400.
Chronos
you
Pendant
can
increased
start
cost
getting-
from
It's very
2800 to
lackluster compared
2700.
to a couple of the other
Oh,
tier
for
two
sure.
mage items.
Yeah,
As a
Chronos
tier 2, it's
Pendant and
awkward.
Restored Artifact will now be a
392.
serious contender in the mage trees.
Yep.
Enchanted Ring, we're going to be adding 10% attack speed to this item and decreasing it by 5 magical power.
The tier 2, the ring tree.
Make sure it's got a little bit of attack speed in it now, as we were discussing. Demonic Grip, we're going to be decreasing the passive magical protection reduction per stack. It was very potent of an item. And it's going to be toned down a little bit here.
Yeah,
Wait,
just
wait. Before they change this, decrease passive magical protection.
kind of discussing the power of what percent pen brings.
Yeah.
We've seen Demonic Grip be really core. Later on, we've also seen Execution be really core. These items are just very effective what they do. They bring a lot of power to the table. We're toning them back slightly to better reflect our understanding of how penetration works, how penetration as a whole should work in Smite. So that's why that's...
So this is kind of jumping us to a new section. That was all the items we just went over. Those were added power. They
Power
were generally
ones,
added
yeah.
about 10 or 15 power. They
Yep.
also had some other cost adjustments. Next, we're moving into Demonic Grip, which,
Hey.
as we were applying penetration, this isn't quite applied the same way as Obsidian or Spear was. And in most cases, it was relatively healthy. But mages, mage ADCs are getting a lot of other tools this season. And we want to be careful with just penetration as a whole. So we're going to see a slight nerf here. And we're going to see similar changes to Executioner
Yeah, this
later.
is percent reduction, like you were saying. This does not go with the 40% cap.
Yeah,
That's one of
also
the main
good to
reasons
know.
we wanted to be careful.
And similarly, with these changes as we move towards our next item, one of the other main problems we're solving in Smite, which is something that people have debated for years, is the amount of damage that Guardians can output, especially in the early game. We all know that pen boots were really the key to that. This other item that we're about to go into is the other key. So I just want to reiterate just the goals for Smite as a whole. We want our Guardians to be able to be impactful, to be able to deal damage, but that has reached some levels of extreme that are causing some negative gameplay recently. So we're toning that down a little bit. We're not trying to turn all of our supports into, Yamoja type. Oh no, even Yamoja does damage, right? Who's the least damaging Guardian? Geb, maybe? I mean, if you don't build him. But we're not trying to turn all of our Guardians into that, but we are trying to tone down some of these very strange, hyper-aggressive builds you could do. So
Wardstone reworks the passive of Wardstone. Enemy gods within 55 units have magical protection reduced by 5%, is what that's going to be. So it's going to make a bit of a difference there. And Voidstone increase the magical power of this item, but rework the passive. Enemy gods within 55 units have their magical protection reduced by 10%. These do stack, I guess, with the normal penetration items in the game.
So
Right,
things
exactly.
that affect enemies don't contribute to your
Actually
stat.
reducing them.
So yeah, these you can theoretically go above the percent penetration cap with these. And these also though these are pivoted away, so flat penetration on Guardians is their biggest damage boost. Now they can't get that early flat pen, so this is actually gonna be better late game. It's gonna be better against other Guardians instead of other squishies, and it's gonna be better for your team as opposed to just using Bacchus as an assassin.
And finally, on the magical side of things, we've got Stone of Binding. We're going to decrease the physical and magical reduction, is what I've got written down here. It's going to go from 15 to 10.
So that is the protection changes. This is just a small nerf on that item.
Yes.
This item's been really strong. We've seen it pop up in SPL a few times. It's still a unique case. It's a bridge item. So it's not going to be undergoing the exact same changes as a lot of these penetrations, but we want to also just hit that penetration nerf just slightly here, just to be safe.
I'm sick of magical stuff. Can we talk about physical for a while?
We are.
Let's
We
talk
are.
about
We are
physicals.
there.
There's
We've
more
made it.
physicals in
Let's
the
get
game.
physical.
Those really, we felt like all those additional changes for Magical were necessary.
I want to watch this till all the items are done, and then just so I could upload it to my YouTube for people who want to see the item part of this shit, and then I'll hop on Smite, and I'm down to do some Conquest.
Because of a sort of ripple effect based on targeting these key 2 items. We set a goal to ourselves to only adjust magical items that we felt to do the minimum number of
Well, it looks
changes
like a
we
fun
need
time to be a mage.
achieve this goal.
So that's it for the magical
But
section.
it's still a lot.
It's time to go to